finding pleasure in meditation. I'm going to give you some pointers, some things to look for when seeking pleasure in your meditation practice. I'm going to talk about stillness and movement in the mindfulness of breathing, and sameness and difference in the metta bhavana. And then things to watch out for in general, in terms of the deeper states of absorption, in terms of the jhanas, as well as the magic inherent in the everyday. The first thing I'd like to say, though, is that finding pleasure in meditation is sometimes really hard. We may be in turmoil or experiencing grief or upheaval or betrayal. Our worlds may be turned upside down by some event or confluence of events that strangely emerge at exactly the wrong time. And we feel all over the place. Can't sleep, we don't have an appetite, we feel lost and in despair. Sitting to meditate during these times can bring comfort, and it can help to keep us grounded and our hearts open. But it can also be the last thing we want to do. And when we do it, it feels too hard. Harder for having tried it, that if this doesn't work, nothing will. So finding pleasure in meditation during these times can be a big ask. But pleasure won't be totally absent even then. If we're looking to meditation, to bring us comfort, we may be disappointed, even though looking for comfort in difficult times is obviously a natural thing. But if we look for the pleasure of discipline, which is a different type of pleasure and comes from a sense of strength, that we can sit with whatever's going on in our experience, however high, however low, we will be okay, even just for these few moments of sitting. Then that type of pleasure, from that sense of strength and discipline, that this is something we're committed to, that this is something we have faith in, that type of pleasure can be found. When we're not in turmoil, when we feel reasonably stable and well and happy and energized and enthusiastic, then meditation offers many pleasures, far too many to list. But I thought I would highlight a couple with the mindfulness of breathing, those of stillness and movement. So stillness and movement within the body. The body is always moving, even when we're sitting very still. The movement of blood, of breath entering and leaving, and muscles and tendons starting to relax. And the body loves our attention. It loves to soften. And it doesn't get much opportunity to do this because of the busy lives we usually lead. So even though we may be distracted during meditation, movement is always something to look for. The pleasure inherent in the body softening, wherever that is, around the face, in the belly, between the shoulders. There's also the pleasure of the movement of the rhythm of the breath entering and the breath leaving, the breath entering and the breath leaving. If and when we get a sense of this and begin to settle into it, it can engender a very refined feeling indeed, which can be intensely pleasurable. When we also settle into the mindfulness of breathing, our discursive, analytical mind begins to become still. And our minds love this stillness. Again, they don't get much opportunity to settle into this state because of our busy lives, but they relish it so much. So even if we're distracted in meditation, coming into presence, coming out of whatever dream or fantasy we've been in, even if it's very brief, very sporadic, this presence will contain stillness, and this is pleasurable. It's a rest for our minds, and our minds will respond to it, will be drawn to it. With the metta bhavana, there's the pleasures of sameness and difference. So tuning into the experience of other people in our lives can be very pleasurable. It can be challenging too, of course, but once we get some sense of them, a couple of things begin to emerge. They're just like us. They have a body like us, a heart, kidneys. Their knees are constructed in the same way as ours. They have hair growing on their head, and this hair can be the source of much anxiety and concern. If you're a young man and your hair begins to fall out, it can really affect your confidence. Or maybe you just really don't like your hair and you've never liked your hair. It's too curly and too straight or too oily or too flat or too grey. But we all have hair, and it all has an effect on us. Aside from our bodies, we also experience feelings and emotions. Fury and love and despair and excitement. And many of the feelings and emotions we share, we experience in exactly the same parts of our bodies. Love and sadness in the heart area, fear in the guts, and our life force and libido towards the base of the spine. We also have dreams and a conscience. We recognize ethical action in ourselves and in others. And when it's skillful, it affects us positively. And when unskillful, we find it ugly. And many of us sense that there's more to life, that life is somehow always growing and changing, that it's not just material. Something else is going on, something mysterious, something beyond our notions of good and bad and black and white. So we can share all of these things, and of course there are many more. These things connect us on a very deep level. We are the same as each other in this regard. And this sense of sameness, this fellow feeling with other human beings that we can really tap into in the Metta-bhavana practice is a very pleasurable thing. Then there's a pleasure of difference. Doing the Metta-bhavana allows us to become more aware of the being of another person. And this always has a sense of uniqueness. They always have a sense of uniqueness. Their character, their spirit is different to ours. There's something original in each human being. How they laugh, how they cry, how they walk. Their particular combination of strengths and qualities, their potential to grow. And this sense of difference is pleasurable to see and feel. It opens the heart a little more when doing the practice. There's also the pleasures of the Dhyanic states. So these are states of deep meditative absorption and are full of joy and bliss and absorption and deep calm and equanimity. And they are states that, if they become established, suffuse our consciousness for hours and days if we're in the right conditions. And then there's the inherent poetry within our lived experience through our connection with the earth and nature and other human beings. This can emerge spontaneously when we meditate. The beauty of the day presents itself again to us. We can develop more of a feeling for it as well, as we've been doing on the Moments of Beauty page in our Slack lounge. Associated with this is a sense of transcendence, a flash of insight into our lives in particular, our life in general, and it can suddenly emerge and burst forth and alter our perspective radically. It can then fade as quickly, but it will leave an imprint. And it can have the feeling of magic about it, a feeling we are all used to for years during our childhoods. And this can also be a very pleasurable aspect of meditation. We can't force pleasure into our meditation, and when times are tough, it can seem far away. But there are things to look out for that can help hook us in, and these are just a few of them. A sense of strength that we're committed to the discipline of meditation and can sit for moments, no matter what's going on, and we'll be okay. There's the pleasures of the movement of the body, especially its softening, and a sense of stillness that the mind can experience. There's the pleasure of sameness and difference of others in the Metta-bhavana practice, and then the deeper meditative states of absorption, traditionally called the jhanas. And finally, flashes of insight that can arise spontaneously